Good morning. I have a new book that we found at the library in Gulf Shores this week, and it reminded me the minute I saw the cover of Curious George because it's yellow and just the drawings. It just looked like Curious George, so I was surprised to see the name of it was Katy No Pocket. And then I saw a story by Emmy Payne, pictures by H.A. Ray. That is the man who drew the pictures, or woman, I'm not sure if it's a man or a woman, that drew the pictures for Curious George, and that's why it looked so familiar. It is a cute, cute book, and it was written in 1944. So we figured out it is 82 years old, no, 81 years old. 44, 54, 64, 74, 84, 94, 2004, 2014, 2024, and then that's 80. 8 tenths is 80, and then one more makes 81 years old. Okay, big tears. Let me see how I'm going to be able to get this where you can see it well. There, you can see it, can't you? Let me toss that cover in. There we go, like that. Big tears rolled down Katy Kangaroo's brown face. You see it okay? It's kind of crooked. Poor Katy was crying because she didn't have a pocket like the other mother kangaroos. Freddie was Katy Kangaroo's little boy, and he needed a pocket to ride in. All grown up kangaroos take awfully big hops, and little kangaroos like Freddie get left far behind unless their mothers have nice pockets to carry them in. Katy and poor Katy didn't have any pocket at all. Okay, so you know how people are born differently. Like some people have been born before, like missing a finger or missing a toe or missing something. And here, Katy, look at her crying. She's so sad. And there's Freddie, and there's all the mothers hopping away with their babies in their pocket. And she doesn't have a pocket. So she was born without a pocket. And I'm sure that really probably happens in real life. Katy Kangaroo cried just thinking about it, and Freddie cried too. Then all of a sudden, Katy had a wonderful idea. It was so wonderful, she jumped 6 feet up in the air, as kangaroos can jump high. The idea was this: other animal mothers had children and they didn't have any pockets. She would go and ask one of them how they carry their babies. So the first one she goes to, it looks like an alligator, but it's a crocodile. They're a little bit different. Crocodile. Freddie looked all around to see whom to ask, and Katy looked all around to see too. And what they both saw were two bubbles rising up from the river right beside them. Mrs. Crocodile, said Katy, feeling lots better already. She hasn't any pocket. Let's ask her. A lot of big muddy bubbles came up through the water, and then Mrs. Crocodile stuck her head up and opened her enormous mouth and smiled. Look, I was going to point to the computer. Look at her big smile. Why, Katy Kangaroo, what can I do for you today? Please, Mrs. Crocodile, I am so sad, said Katy. I have no pocket, and Freddie has to walk wherever we go, and he gets so tired. Oh dear, oh dear. And she started to cry again. Well, the crocodile began to cry too, and then she said, but, what can I do? You can tell me how to carry Freddie, said Katy. How do you carry little Catherine Crocodile? Oh, do please tell me, please. Why, I carry her on my back, of course, said Mrs. Crocodile. She was so surprised that anyone shouldn't know that she forgot to cry anymore. So there's Caroline Crocodile on her back. So that's so funny. Let me see what time it is. Do I have, oh yeah, I have time to finish this. Okay, so look what she's doing. There's Freddie getting on her back. There's Freddie, he's on her back. Uh-oh. Oh, what happened? Katy was pleased. She said thank you, and as soon as she got to a good squatting down place, she squatted and said, now, Freddie, climb up on my back. After this, it will be so simple. No trouble at all, she said. Let me move a little bit. Okay? But it wasn't simple. In the first place, Freddie could not crawl up onto her back because his knees stuck out. Remember, his knees don't really bend like legs. Let's see where it was. There he is. He couldn't hang on because his front legs were too short. And when he did manage to hang on for a few minutes and Katy gave a long hop, he fell off. Bump, bang, with a terrific thump. So Katy saw that she could not carry her baby on her back. That is not going to work. Oh, did you see already what it was? Katy and Freddie sat down again and thought and thought. I know. I'll ask Mrs. Monkey. I'm sure she can help me. Oh, I forgot to show you how the author or the illustrator also wrote what the the crocodile said. Why, on my back, of course. And then here the monkey says, I'm going to tell you what he says. So Katy and Freddie set off for the forest, and very soon they found Mrs. Monkey. She had her young son Jocko with her, and Katy Kangaroo hurried so to catch up with them that she was almost out of breath. But finally she managed to squeak, Please, Mrs. Monkey, how do you carry Jocko? Why, in my arms, of course. And that's what this says. Why, in my arms, of course, which is how we carry babies, right, people? Monkeys are a lot like people. Why, in my arms, of course, said Mrs. Monkey. How else would any sensible animal carry anything? And she whisked through the trees. Oh, dear, said Katy, and a great big tear ran across her long nose. I can't carry anything in these short little arms I have. Oh, dear, she wasn't any help at all. What are we going to do? And she just sat down and cried harder and harder. Because you remember over here, their arms are tiny compared to their legs. Okay. Ooh, I wonder what animal's next. There's two animals here. Let's see if I can hide one of them. Here's one of them. Poor Freddie, he hated to see his mother cry, so he put his paw to his head and he thought and thought and thought. What about the lion? He asked when Katy stopped crying a little. They don't carry their children. Those poor things walk just the way you do, said Katy. See his children going? What's the next one? Do. You see it? Oh, here it says the way lions do it. There's birds, said Freddie. How do they carry their babies? Birds, said Katy. The mother birds just push their children out of the nest, and they squawk and shriek and flap their wings about it. The way birds do it. And that's true. When mama's decided that it's time for the babies to leave home, she shoves them out of the nest, and they just have to learn how to fly. Then all at once, Katy Kangaroo stopped crying and looked at Freddie. They do say that the owl knows almost everything, she said slowly. Well then, for goodness sake, let's ask him, said Freddie. They found the owl asleep in an old dead tree. They do sleep in holes in trees. But wait a minute, is this book realistic fiction, like it could really happen, or is it fantasy? It could never happen like this. Which one? It's definitely fantasy. And you can always know it's fantasy when animals are talking. Okay? If they're talking like people talk, English, speaking to each other, it's a fantasy book because animals don't do that. Of course, dogs can bark, cats can meow, but they can't say, hey, Mrs. Altmeyer, how was your day at school today? So if animals are talking, it's a fantasy book. So let's see. They found the owl asleep in an old dead tree, and he was cross, which means angry. That's a word that people used to use in 1944. He was cross because he didn't want to be waked up in the middle of the day. But when he saw that Katy was so sad, he came out, blinking and ruffling his feathers, and said in a scratchy voice, well, what is it? Speak up and speak loudly, because I'm as deaf as a post. Deaf means you can't hear. So Katy stood under the tree and screamed at him, I'm a mother kangaroo, and I haven't a pocket to carry my child in. How shall I carry him? What shall I do? Get a pocket, said the owl, and went to sleep again. Where? Cried Katy. Oh, please don't go to sleep before you tell me where. How should I know? Said the owl. They sell that sort of thing in the city, I believe. Now kindly go away and let me sleep. The city, said Katy, and looked at Freddie with big round eyes. Of course, we'll go to the city. It is a longer book than I usually read, but it's so cute because now, of course, they're going to the city. It says, to the city, speed limit 25 miles an hour. And look at all the animals watching them. Katy was so excited that she almost left Freddie behind as she went leaping over bushes and hopping along the path, singing in a sort of hummy way a little song she had just made up. Hippity hoppity, flippity floppity, wasn't it a pity I didn't know it was to the city I should go. She hopped so fast that Freddie could hardly keep up, but at last they left the woods and came to the city. I don't see a period, so I think we go to the next sentence. Came to the city where there were stores and houses and automobiles. Look at that big city. The people all stared and stared at Katy. Oh, why are they staring at Katy, do you think? Because a kangaroo and her baby hopping through the city is probably the first time that's happened ever. Okay, the people all stared and stared at Katy, but she didn't notice it. She was looking for pockets, and she saw that almost everybody had pockets in the city. And then, all at once, she saw. She could hardly believe it. A man who seemed to be all pockets. He was simply covered with pockets. Big pockets, little pockets, medium-sized pockets. Do you see his pockets? There he is. What's he wearing? Do you know what that's called? You will. Katy went up to him and laid a paw on his arm. How sweet is that? He was a little frightened, but Katy looked at him with her soft brown eyes and said, please, dear kind man, where did you get all these pockets? These pockets, he said. You want to know where I got all these pockets? Why, they just came with the apron, of course, and that is called an apron. You may have seen someone wearing an apron in the kitchen so they don't get their clothes dirty when they're cooking. Or this is a tool apron. My husband used to wear a tool belt around his waist where he would keep like a tape measure and maybe a screwdriver, I don't know, but other tools around his belt. But some have a tool apron. Okay, let's see. You mean you can really get something to put on with all those pockets already in it, said Katy. Sure you can, said the man. I keep my hammer and nails and tools in my pockets, but I can get another apron, so I'll give you mine. And he took off his apron. How nice was that man? And he dumped it upside down. And look, they make the words upside down turn upside down. Out fell a saw, a wrench, nails, a hammer, a drill, and lots of other tools. Then the man shook the apron so hard, hard, and turned it right side up again. And he hung it around Katy's neck and tied it behind her back. Katy was so pleased and excited and happy that she couldn't speak. She just stood still and looked down at the pockets and smiled and smiled and smiled. By this time, a big crowd had gathered to see what Katy was doing. When they saw how pleased she was, they all smiled too. I wish I was better at holding these pictures straight. Oh, what in the world? Look at that train back there. At last, Katy was able to say thank you to the nice, kind man. And then, what do you think she did? You know what she did before she started running. She popped Freddie into a very comfortable pocket, and she hippity-hopped home faster than ever before because, of course, she didn't have to wait for Freddie. And when she got home, what do you think she did? What do you think she did? Look at the picture. Well, she had so many pockets that she put Freddie into the biggest one of all. Then into the next largest, she put little Leonard Lion. Thomas Tortoise just fitted in another pocket. Sometimes she had a baby bird if its mother was busy at a worm hunt, and there was still room for a monkey, a skunk, a rabbit, a raccoon, a lizard, a squirrel, a possum, a turtle, a frog, and a snail. So cute. So now, look at her with all the animals, and you see the kangaroos behind her. So now all the animals liked Katie's pockets better than any other pockets in the forest. And Katie Kangaroo is very happy because now she has more pockets than any mother kangaroo in the world. That is such a cute, adorable book. The end. Look at the end. Who is that? That was Owl. He knew, didn't he? He sent her to the city. There's the wise owl again. Oh, there. I love that book, and I hope you loved it too. And if you haven't read Curious George, you definitely need to do that because it's a great series.